Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to welcome everyone. Yes, please sit down. Thank you. It's my honor and pleasure to welcome everyone to the city of Wilkes-Barre today. I'd like to call out a few people that are here today and recognize them for being here. First of all, my City Police Chief, Joe Coffey. Our County Council members, Jimmy Sabatino, Joanne Bryan Smith, and I believe Brian Thornton is here or will be here shortly. Also, Sheriff Shrimsky. We have also staff members from Congressman Cartwright's office and staff members from Senator Marty Flynn's office. I know Brian Doughton is here today. Brian, thank you for being here. Also, I cannot forget my good friend Ramilda Percano, the county manager, and my other good friend, the Wyoming County DA, Joe Peters. Mr. Peters, thank you for being here and coming to Wilkes-Barre. I, as mayor of the city of Wilkes-Barre, I'm very proud of the police department that's led by, as I said, our police chief, Joe Coffey. And their continued dedication to provide safety and protection to the residents of the city of Wilkes-Barre. The partnership between the city of Wilkes-Barre Police Department and Luzerne County District Attorney's Office has recorded and has resulted in delivering many crimes that have been brought to fruition and closure. Investigations and prosecutions of gun-related crimes require training. They require time and funding. The PCCD's Gun Violence and Prosecution Grant Program allows for funding to make those investigations and prosecutions possible. As mayor of the city of Wilkes-Barre, I implore the Pennsylvania State Legislature to work with the Governor Shapiro's administration to again secure funding for this grant program for the 2024-2025 fiscal year. Now, I'd like to relay just a couple personal things here. A few years ago, when I just started as my first year as mayor, I met with Josh Shapiro, and he said, "Mayor, we are going to provide funding to make sure that we address the crime in the city, not just your city, but all cities." And he said, the city of Wilkes-Barre will be getting help from the governor's office. And we met, I believe, 3 times, Governor, and each time that same message was there. Mayor Brown, we are going to make sure that we secure the funding to fight crime in the city of Wilkes-Barre. I'm happy to say that this governor has come through, and he's provided the funding, the support, the things that we need as we need support to fight crime in the city of Wilkes-Barre. Governor, I want to thank you for that.
Thank you, Mayor.
Also, I would like to recognize the best district attorney in the state of Pennsylvania, and I know I'll get some flack on that. I'm sorry, sir. Sorry, Mr. Peters. But Sam Lt has been a very important partner with our police department in the city of Wilkes-Barre. He helps provide resources, guidance, and he provides backup for us. And it's just a great relationship. I've worked with Sam for several years now as mayor. I can't say enough about the great job he's done. It's my pleasure to introduce Luzerne County DA Sam Lt.
Thank you, Mayor. Thanks, Sam. Thanks, Governor. That's a heck of an introduction. Whatever I have to say after that probably pales in comparison. There are some people that I'd like to recognize from the county that are here. Again, our manager, Ramilda Crocomo, we've never had someone, I think, support our office and law enforcement so much. It makes our lives a lot easier when we're rowing in the same direction. Also, Jennifer Pecora, head of operations, Mary Rozelle, head of budget and finance, James Wilbur, head of our prison, Harry Skeen, our chief solicitor. So thank you all for helping us do what we do every day. It wouldn't be possible without you. Along the lines of what Mayor Brown said, this is really a team effort. while we're happy to provide all the support that we can to Wilkes-Barre, we couldn't do it without support from the governor's office, and we couldn't do it without the teamwork that we get from Wilkes-Barre City. I had the extreme pleasure of meeting Josh Shapiro back when he was the Attorney General at a Pennsylvania District Attorneys Association event. He had restored the relationship between the DA's office and our local Attorney General's office. We've never been closer than we were under Governor Shapiro and his successor, Michelle Henry. I'd like to think that it's that experience as Attorney General in fighting crime and seeing the gun violence across Pennsylvania that put the need for this funding on his radar, and it's such a great honor that he decided to make this announcement in Luzerne County. To us, it means that we are not lost among the vastness, what that is the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, that Luzerne County and all of Northeast PA is front and center on the governor's radar. For anyone that's paid any attention, you might notice I'm the only Republican up here. I'd like to think that's because gun violence and fighting crime is not a Democrat or Republican issue. Again, this is proof that reaching across the aisle, we can row in the same direction and do the best that we can do to fight crime in Northeast Pennsylvania and across the Commonwealth. We're seeing an exceptional amount of gang violence more than ever before in Northeast Pennsylvania. We're infiltrated by various gangs, you know, the major divisions of gangs, but also their tiny subsets that have now exposed gun violence as far north as Scranton beyond our county lines and as far south along the 81 corridor as Hazleton, the southern tip of Luzerne County. We see drug trafficking and human trafficking, and of course, those go hand in hand with gun violence. On top of all that, we're seeing more straw purchases than ever before. That is, people permitted to lawfully buy firearms, but their intent is to transfer those firearms to people who are not allowed to have them. On top of straw purchases, most recently in the last few weeks, we've seen the production, major production of ghost guns being 3D printed in backroom apartments, which is frightening for all of us. They're untraceable and unserialized. Thanks to Governor Shapiro and previous funding, we were able to hire a detective that was dedicated to fighting gun violence full-time and another detective part-time, and they have teamed up to make more arrests than ever before in Luzerne County to combat gun violence. It's partially funded. A prosecutor in our office, which, as you know, every DA's office across the county is facing funding shortages and facing difficulty hiring prosecutors. This current funding proposed by the governor is going to allow us to increase personnel dedicated to reducing gun violence, to stop unlawful purchases throughout the county, and to prosecute the defendants to the fullest extent of the law. We'll be able to provide overtime to municipal police officers who assist our office and engage in sting operations to take illegal firearms out of the hands of criminals where they don't belong. On behalf of the District Attorney's Office and the people of Luzerne County, I would like to personally thank Governor Shapiro for not forgetting Luzerne County, for putting us front and center in this fight. This announcement demonstrates, as I said, his understanding of the issues we are facing and that we are not lost in the size of the great Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. It is now my great pleasure to introduce a state representative from the 118th District, whose office is in my original hometown of Houston, Pennsylvania. He promised us that he would only speak for 2 minutes. State Representative James Haddock.
Thanks so much. He's already giving you a hard time there, Jim.
That's okay, Governor. Today, I have the pleasure of coming back under the dome, where I served for 9.5 years as the proprietary and clerk of courts manager for this county. That opportunity now has given me the privilege of working in two of the finest buildings in the state of Pennsylvania, that our House Capitol and this beautiful building that we're here today of. I see my old boss, Ramilda Caracamo, our new county manager, and Ramilda knows it was a full-time job watching me when I worked here, and now Governor Shapiro is finding out what a full-time job that is as he speaks.
Yeah, we'll talk.
But being with Sam Sangdadochi today brings back memories of going into the budget hearings here under the county. And those budget hearings were tough. Whether it was the clerk of courts or the DA's office, we were fighting for money for our offices. And sometimes the elected officials were telling us do more with less, and they were cutting our budgets. Cutting budgets and not having the money doesn't help guys like Sam hire county detectives to do the work that's necessary. There's not money in the budget then for forensics and other investigations that have to be done. What does help fight crime is the dollars. And today we're here and the governor's announcing a $37.5 million budget for these very things to help the mayor of Wilkes-Barre, police throughout Luzerne County and all of Pennsylvania, along with our district attorneys from Wyoming County to Luzerne County, fight crime. And in this case, gun violence. So my job is to go back to Harrisburg, support the governor's budget, and get this $37.5 million into our budget. And I appreciate the governor and his leadership, and Austin Davis, can't forget our lieutenant governor, because Austin was in the House and he knows how important the governor's budget is because it's half his budget. He's our lieutenant governor. And these two guys realize fighting crime and keeping our streets safe is paramount to the success of Pennsylvania. As a freshman, I was very lucky. I got elected and I joined one of the senior members in the Northeast delegation, Eddie Dave Pashinsky, and he helped guide me through our first budget and my first year in the House. And it is my pleasure to introduce your state rep right here in Wilkes-Barre, Eddie Dave Pashinsky.
Thank you, Jimmy. What a great pleasure it is for me to be the dad of these guys. I had the distinct privilege and pleasure of serving in the House of Representatives when Governor Shapiro was there. And I had the distinct privilege of observing him as he got up and spoke. Everyone listened. And the first thing you thought of was, this boy has a future. This guy's going places. Same thing with this guy. Austin Davis. By the way, we live in a building. He has an apartment, I have an apartment. I always know when he's up. He always knows when I'm up because the shower door bangs. But Austin was also one of those new young legislators that got up and spoke for what they believed in their heart, in their soul, for the betterment of their constituents, for the betterment of Pennsylvania. Unbelievable. That boy has a way to go, don't we? Yeah. Now he's the lieutenant governor. How about that? And then we have Jimmy Haddock. Jimmy Haddock. He's in my row. So whenever everything's happening, we're always talking. Is this a good bill? Is that a good bill? Whatever. The point I'm making to you is there are so many wonderful people in state government that work hard for the right purpose. And that purpose is to represent you. What an incredible place to have the governor make his presentation about the safety and the welfare of all of us. We're not Democrats and Republicans. We are Americans first. We are Americans first. And our safety does not have a political party, does it? It does not. Because those that have suffered from the tragedies of a weapon, didn't matter whether you're a Democrat, Republican, Independent. This magnificent building is a symbol for what we are in America. What do I mean? It's all about law. Follow the law. Why do we have the laws? For our safety, for peace. And all of those men and women that are in those uniforms that serve every day to protect us, they're here to make sure that we're okay. but we have to help them. And this law and this money and this program that Governor Shapiro is bringing forth today is one of those things that's necessary to help all of those that keep us safe every day, every hour, every day is so vital. So when I said it's an honor to serve, I mean that sincerely. And I want to make that point very clearly. When it comes to the law, it doesn't matter what your party is. It's a matter of truth and justice. You follow the law and get the results. And a young man that I have the honor now of presenting to you is our Lieutenant Governor, Austin Davis, another young man that I have a great deal of pride and pleasure of not only knowing, but again, watching him grow and represent this great state of ours. So at this time, I say a nice round of applause and a great Northeastern welcome to our Lieutenant Governor, Austin Davis.
Well, thank you, Eddie Day, for that wonderful introduction. I do want to make one correction. I know that you're up because I hear you singing Frank Sinatra at 6 a.m. in the morning. It is great to be back here in Luzerne County with my governing partner, Governor Josh Shapiro, who gave me the awesome responsibility of leading the Pennsylvania Commission on Crime and Delinquency. And I think that should send a message to all of you how serious we take public safety in the Shapiro-Davis administration, that the Lieutenant Governor is leading public safety efforts for our administration. I'm so grateful that the governor and I have partners like Representative Haddock and Representative Pashinsky, who are tireless advocates for increasing public safety dollars in the Pennsylvania House of Representatives. And I know with their leadership, we're going to get this across the finish line come June. But I also want to recognize the hard work of your mayor, your district attorney, and your police chief. They work day in and day out on the ground as partners to the governor and I to make sure people in Luzerne County both are safe and feel safe in their communities. I also want to thank survivors like Kathy, who've turned their pain into purpose and who have really showed us how to be strong advocates to end gun violence in our communities. Thank you for being with us today. I've been working on this issue for nearly 2 decades, and as Lieutenant Governor and as chair of the Pennsylvania Commission on Crime and Delinquency, we're working every day to make every Pennsylvania community safer. To attack the epidemic of gun violence, we need to take a comprehensive approach that addresses the root causes, things like lack of opportunity, mental health, substance abuse issues. We're also investing in community-based organizations that are doing evidence-based violence prevention work day in and day out at the grassroots level. And we're also supporting our law enforcement agencies to help them do the difficult job they've been tasked with every single day. In the past 6 months, we've provided more than $2 million in grants to help more than 50 agencies recruit and train highly qualified candidates to fill more than 400 vacant positions here in Pennsylvania. We're also going to provide up to $10 million in grants for local law enforcement agencies to upgrade their data collection and reporting systems, because we know that police departments need more robust, real-time information to deal with the epidemic of gun violence in our communities. And we need to put more resources into gun violence investigation and prosecution here in Pennsylvania, so local law enforcement can increase their clearance rates and get truly dangerous criminals off our streets. Every community in the state is dealing with the epidemic of gun violence here in Pennsylvania. This isn't just a Wilkes-Barre problem or a Philadelphia problem or a Pittsburgh problem. It's a Pennsylvania problem, and it's uniquely an American problem, but it's a problem that we can and must do something about. And the proposed investments in our budget would be an important step to making all of our communities safer. And I know with the help of the folks standing here and in this room and our allies in Harrisburg, we are going to make Pennsylvania communities truly safer. It is my pleasure to introduce Kathy Toothill, who's been a staunch advocate on this issue. Thank you for being with us today.
Good afternoon. I'm Kathy Lee Toothill, and I am a wounded survivor of gun violence. March 7th, 1972, I wonder if you know what you were doing. I know what I was doing. I was walking home from North Pocono High School and walking up the snowy road to my parents' home. And I heard a voice that said, "Kathy, come here." I turned around and I saw that it was a boy that I had dated briefly the year before, but had not seen him for a year. I didn't want to date him. I didn't like his politics or his personality. So there was no point. However, I guess he didn't feel that way because he had a gun and he said, "Come here or I'll shoot." And he started shooting. I was shot 12 times with a .22 caliber rifle, 6 times in my legs, 4 times in my abdomen, and 2 times in my left arm. I had a broken hip, broken arm, and numerous internal injuries from the bullets. He did at one point come up to me and said, "Have you had enough or do you want more?" And we went back to reload. And at that time, a neighbor of mine came around and he had heard the screaming and the gunshots, and he wondered what was going on. And fortunately, the boy surrendered the gun to my neighbor, who didn't have a gun. He just had his own courage. It was a horrible experience. I had wonderful doctors. That's why I'm here today. I have to say that recovering from gun violence is a lifelong process. I had a real hard time. There was no Victims Advocacy Act back in 1972. And so we were kind of left to our own devices in my family. My family was devastated. And we had to go through the court system. Fortunately, he pleaded guilty, so we didn't have a trial. However, what happened was he was sentenced to 23 months in the county jail because his lawyer didn't want to mark the boy with a prison sentence. So, over the years, I've done okay. I was a drug and alcohol counselor. I worked and got my master's degree from Marywood University in psychology, and I did drug and alcohol counseling until I retired. Once I retired, I decided I needed to do something with all that energy, and I decided that I needed to help other people who had been through similar experiences. But I didn't know anybody who had been through an experience like that. And so one day I saw a bunch of orange T-shirts, and people wearing them were cleaning up a walkway in Scranton. Scranton has a lot of walks. And I asked questions, I met people, and I found out it was Moms Demand Action, and they were all about sensible gun legislation. So I joined, and I became a fellow of Everytown Survivor Network. And I met people who had been through things like me. I had met people that were struggling with survival, and I'm grateful that these organizations are available for people like me. I'm so glad to hear that there will be money available to help the prosecution and helping people like me, people who have been victims of gun violence and who are now survivors. I'm grateful to hear that our governor has proposed new things in his budget for crime victims and for, pardon me, and to reduce gun violence in our state. And with that, it's my pleasure and my honor to introduce our governor, Josh Shapiro.
Thank you. Kathy, thank you for sharing your story with us. Thank you for your bravery. Thank you for your strength. And thank you for speaking out for all to hear your story so that we can hopefully use that to motivate all engaged to reduce gun violence in our communities and to always stand with our victims of gun violence. So we thank you very, very much for being here. Please. We are, of course, here today, back in Wilkes-Barre, back in Luzerne County, and for me, back in this beautiful, stunningly beautiful courthouse, because we want to come together, Democrat and Republican alike, and say that we're here to take back our communities, say that we are here to make sure that our communities are safer, say that we are going to deliver for people like Kathy and other victims of gun violence across this Commonwealth, and say that we are committed to making sure that there are fewer Kathys, fewer victims of gun violence here in Luzerne County and across this Commonwealth. I want to say a moment about Luzerne County and my affinity and affection for it. Your fine DA mentioned how thankful he was that I'm here in Luzerne County and not forgetting it, notwithstanding the vast, large swath of land that makes up the great Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. I want you to know that every day when I go in my office, I'm privileged to sit in the governor's office as your 48th governor of this great Commonwealth. And sitting at my desk behind me is the first map ever commissioned by the House of Representatives for our first governor, Governor Thomas Mifflin. And I want you to know that Luzerne County took up damn near 1/3 of the space of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania way back when. So, Mr. District Attorney, I care a lot about Luzerne County today, but your presence on that map reminds me of Luzerne County every single day. And the other reason I wanted to be here, not only to highlight this issue, but to highlight the way in which Luzerne County leaders work together. The DA referenced that he's a Republican standing with Democrats. This is a community that knows how to come together to get stuff done, which is the mantra of our administration and the way of life here in Luzerne County. And so I want to thank you all for leading by example all across Pennsylvania. And I want to thank all who joined us here today for coming out. Representative Haddock, I would note that one person clapped when she heard the word prothonotary up there. She's a big fan of that prothonotari's office. There you go. But we're, of course, gathered here today in common purpose to say that we do not accept the unacceptable levels of gun violence in our communities. The Lieutenant Governor and I have visited far too many communities that have been shattered by gun violence. And as he correctly noted, they are communities all across this Commonwealth. I've hugged and sat with too many families who have an empty chair at their dinner table, and I've spoken with far too many Pennsylvanians who've seen the trajectory of their lives change as a result of a bullet. And I'm here to tell you, it does not have to be this way. This work, of course, is not new to me. I've worked to address gun violence and make our communities safer for many, many years, and it has been a top priority for me. When I served as your Attorney General, my team fought successfully to close the ghost gun loophole. But as you heard the District Attorney note, we still have more work to do in that space. We implemented together with lawmakers the Safe to Say program to give students an anonymous portal to report things that made them feel unsafe at school. Together, my team in the Attorney General's office arrested 330 gun traffickers during my time as your Attorney General. We took 3,200 guns off our streets. And too often times we know illegal guns and illegal drugs go hand in hand. And so when I was Attorney General, we arrested over 8,100 drug dealers and seized 3.2 million doses of heroin and over 4 million doses of the lethal fentanyl. We worked closely with our law enforcement partners at the local, state, and federal level to get dangerous criminals off our streets, to keep guns out of the hands of those who shouldn't have them, and to enforce the laws of Pennsylvania without fear and without favor. In fact, I want you to know this isn't the first time I've been in this courthouse or standing right by these steps. As Attorney General, I worked closely with now Judge, then District Attorney, Stephanie Salvantis, and I'm proud that we've been able to continue that relationship with DA Lt. Together, we have worked to improve lives here in Luzerne County and make people safer. These local law enforcement leaders, they work incredibly hard, often in very dangerous conditions, to prevent violence, to hold criminals accountable, and to keep our communities safe. I saw that work firsthand here in Luzerne County, where everyone came together, your chief of police and others, to make sure that the citizens of this community were protected. And what's clear to me, both as Attorney General and now as your governor, is that we need a well-funded, multi-pronged approach in order to reduce gun violence across our communities. We have to invest in law enforcement, and we have to invest in our communities to create safer neighborhoods, towns, and cities. And as your governor, I'm doing just that. Last year, the Shapiro-Davis administration in our budget delivered $40 million for gun violence prevention all across Pennsylvania. That was $10 million more than had been done previously. Dollars that went directly to the community, to church organizations and civic groups, focused on keeping guns out of the hands of those who shouldn't have them, focused on saving lives. This year, I want to more than double that investment with another $100 million to reduce gun violence here in Luzerne County, in Wyoming County, and all across Pennsylvania. That includes $37.5 million for the gun violence investigation and prosecution program that helps local leaders like DA Lt. Continue to do their important work. You heard him reference this before. The Luzerne County District Attorney's Office received over $600,000 in state grants through this initiative, allowing them to hire a full-time detective, an assistant district attorney, and prosecute more gun crimes in our communities, while also giving them the flexibility to purchase more equipment and expand their training. We must equip our law enforcement with the tools and resources they need to successfully prosecute these crimes in our communities. At the same time, we have continued to invest into community-based initiatives that work every day to prevent violence before it happens. Initiatives that help address mental health and create opportunity to put our young people on a different path. I want to give a special thanks to Lieutenant Governor Austin Davis. You heard him reference that he serves at my appointment as chairman of the Pennsylvania Commission on Crime and Delinquency. District Attorney Peters and your local DA here understand the importance of PCCD. And under his leadership, he's driven out over $100 million in initiatives to reduce violence in our communities. And he's going to continue to focus on investing in law enforcement and investing in our communities as we go forward. All told, we're seeking to invest $100 million in these initiatives to help our district attorneys and support those communities that are doing this important work. I also want to note that this is on top of the historic investments we made in law enforcement last year, adding 400 new state troopers to our ranks. And this year, I'm coming back to Representative Eddie Day Pashinsky, Representative Haddock, Senator Flynn, and others, and asking for 400 more state troopers and additional resources for municipal police departments all across Pennsylvania. We believe in investing in law enforcement in the Shapiro-Davis administration. And we believe in making and keeping commitments to people like Kathy. You know, we've lost over 2,000 Pennsylvanians last year to gun violence in our communities, including 173 young people. It doesn't have to be this way, and we can do something about it. Working together, working with a well-funded, multi-pronged approach from the community to a district attorney's office to making sure those who put the uniform on and run toward danger every day have the tools and resources and the person power that they need to go out and do these work. Look, this is common sense stuff. Common sense investments to make our communities safer. Common sense investments that make a real difference in people's lives. We've begun to make those investments. And I want to personally thank Representative Eddie Day Pashinsky and Representative Haddock for their incredible work to get these resources across the finish line. Governing is not easy, especially in the environment we are in. I'm the only governor in the entire nation with a divided legislature. The Senate led by Republicans, the House led by Democrats. For us to get anything done, it's got to be bipartisan and it's got to be common sense. And these two gentlemen have led the way on the floor of the House of Representatives to make it so. My budget overall proposes to invest in common sense things: economic development, education, and public safety. And I want you to know that right now, at this moment, Pennsylvania is sitting on a $14 billion budget surplus. $14 billion is a whole lot of money. That's $14 billion that the politicians over time have taken from the taxpayers and squirreled away in some bank account in Harrisburg. I don't think that there should be political points scored in saving money in Harrisburg. I think instead we need to invest it in the good people of Pennsylvania. And so my budget proposes investments in education, economic development, and public safety. It also proposes to cut taxes and cut costs, and not raising any taxes either. And if the legislature, just for argument's sake, were to come together and adopt my budget as is, I know there'll be some give and take, but just for argument's sake, if they adopted my budget as is, complete with these public safety investments, we would still have an $11 billion surplus left over, and we'd cut taxes, cut costs, and make critical investments here in Luzerne County and all across Pennsylvania. Now's the time to step up and get something done. Thank you for your applause up there. Now is the time to step up and get something done. I want to note as well that it's not just about dollars and cents. It's about common sense legislation that's going to keep us safe. The House of Representatives last year, with the votes of Representative Pashinsky and Representative Haddock and others, passed two critically important bills that are supported by law enforcement and large majorities of Democrats and Republicans from all across Pennsylvania to create extreme risk protection orders and to establish universal background checks in Pennsylvania. The rationale behind these bills is to both protect law-abiding citizens and their Second Amendment rights and make sure that guns do not get in the hands of criminals and juveniles and those who aren't legally permitted to have them. Common sense, supported by law enforcement, passed by these guys. And so when I said we need a multi-pronged approach, it's making these critical investments and it's passing these important bills. And now is the time for us to make that happen. I came here today to Luzerne County, came back to these steps, came back to stand with the district attorney of this great county and leaders from across the political spectrum to thank Luzerne County for having your act together, for being great leaders across the Commonwealth, and to call on you to join us in investing in public safety today, to call on you to join us in coming together around common sense proposals that are going to keep our communities safe. I know enough to know, as your former Attorney General, together with these law enforcement leaders, is that there's not one thing we need to do to make our communities safe. There's a whole lot of things we need to do. And together, that's exactly what we're doing and what we propose to do. So thank you for having me and the Lieutenant Governor and the others with us today. And we look forward to answering any questions from the media. Your DA has agreed to take all the questions, so I'll step aside and leave the floor to him. Thank you all very, very much. Thank you. Next.
Governor, Chief Distribute Watch 16. Could either of you tell us what the application process would be like for this $37.5 million for these local agencies?
I'm going to yield to the LG and the chairman of PCCD for that.
Yeah, thanks, Gov. So one, we need to get these dollars in place. And so law enforcement agencies are used to applying for whether it's gun violence reduction grants, whether it's law enforcement recruitment grants. PCCD will develop a framework for them to apply, and then we'll push it out to law enforcement agencies once the legislature ultimately passes the funding in June. Thank you.
And I'll just note, There was some funding sitting at PCCD when we took office. The application process was long, it was cumbersome, and it took a while to drive those dollars out. In his first few months as chair of PCCD and lieutenant governor, he drove those dollars out, recognizing leaving it in Harrisburg doesn't help anybody be safe. Getting it on the ground in the community does, and really proud of the LG for his leadership.
Governor, I'm just a private citizen. I do live action reporting live on Facebook. But just one thing that you have forgot is what's causing all the gun violence. In the last 3 years and 4 months, the drugs are just flowing into our country, especially Pennsylvania. I think this Pennsylvania State Police in the last few years had some of the biggest drug busts.
Right.
And our mayor and with Wilkes-Barre Police had a major drug bust. I've been around the police department for almost 51 years. And believe it or not, in the 70s and into the 80s, there was one drug dealer. His name was Wallace Hughes. And you know what his nickname was? The Governor.
What's the question?
The question is, what are we going to do about the borders? Because that's how all this stuff is coming in. We have to get the borders under control, and the guns go with the drug line.
Yeah. We need to secure our border. I've been very vocal about that, and this is a failure of the federal government over many generations of leadership. We understand here in Luzerne County, as the questioner suggested, how to make serious drug busts, how to get these poisons that are killing our kids out of our communities, how to put the resources together, which we are trying to complement and support to make sure that they have what they need to go out and make the busts that they make. Again, as Attorney General, we arrested over 8,100 drug dealers during my time, working closely with former District Attorney Salvantis and others to make sure that we worked in partnership with our local communities, and the state will continue to work in partnership with all of you here to keep our communities safe. Bill.
What pushback are you getting and why? What you want to do with this budget to fight this issue?
I think this enjoys bipartisan support. It's a matter of getting it across the finish line. And it's a matter of making sure that we're able to put faces to these challenges, faces like Kathy, faces like your outstanding DA who prosecutes these cases every day and who needs more resources. And so we want to highlight the need in the community, and we also want to highlight how a community like Luzerne County has come together to address these challenges successfully and hold them up as a model for others to see. This is something that should be supported by Republicans and Democrats alike, and I'm going to be fighting hard to get this done in the budget process, as I know Senator Flynn, Representative Haddock, and Representative Eddie Day will as well.
So you're confident?
I'm always confident.
Governor Bob Kalinowski, Citizen Voice. I think someone was going to ask.
I just can't hear you. You're going to have to speak up.
Bob Kalinowski, Citizen Voice. I think someone was going to ask this question. What's your reaction to what's going on the college campuses, and what would your response be?
These are obviously challenging times globally, and I understand that there are people that want to stand up and protest peacefully and share their point of view on what is happening in the Middle East. And there should be a place for peaceful protest. There should be a place for people to protest and still follow the rules of their college campus, the local ordinances, our state laws, and our federal laws. What we have seen on some college campuses across America are people who have used these, what should be peaceful and righteous protests, as excuses to engage in anti-Semitism and in some cases Islamophobia. And neither is okay. What we have also seen in some cases are protesters that have refused to follow the rules of the college campus or of the local community, and law enforcement has been brought in to clear out those displays and make sure that order is restored and the rules are followed. Rules have to be followed in order to make sure that peaceful protests can continue. My administration has been in close contact with universities here in Pennsylvania, both reminding them of their responsibilities under state law and federal law to keep their students safe and free from discrimination, and making sure that the rules of the local community and the rules of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania are adhered to every step of the way. Yes. Thank Thank you all very, very much.